The first demon king ruled for the past 1,000 years, but was defeated by an unknown person and was removed from his throne. According to the rumors, it has been 7 days since the king changed. Before the demon king had gained his authority, the royal household planned to gather warriors who could assassinate him. This was an amazing opportunity for the people to gain the title of warrior who defeated the demon king. A new legend is about to be written because of this little boy. City Erms. An old man with a beard shouted with vigor, "Thanks for gathering warriors. Amongst you all, we would pick a warrior who would be a part of the expedition team to slay the demon king." He looked towards the enthusiastic crowd and said, "The last man standing in this arena would join the team which has the best archer Acne, magician Hadim, and the mysterious healer, and would get the opportunity to obtain the honor of killing the demon king. Fight and survive till the end." Amongst the crowd was a young boy, who after hearing all this was excited. But the person in front of him was overly excited, as he spread his energy in the whole arena, to intimidate everyone. The crowd started cheering as they shouted the name of the knight commander. The boy was still confused by all this. At this moment he heard an arrogant voice from behind, "Hey kid, did you come here by mistake? Get out if you don't want to get hurt." The people recognized this man and shouted with excitement, 100 victories and 100 battles, War Maniac back is also there. The knight commander was also surprised seeing a kid in the arena. He then asked, "Will I fight with a kid? What do you think of the knight's pride?" The boy smiled innocently and said, "Is it the pride of the knight to bring subordinates to the place where only one warrior can survive?" Hearing that both the big man back and the knight commander got angry. They dropped all the formalities and directly attacked him. The boy, seeing the two in action, thought, this might be a bit dangerous. Then the boy did something incredulous. He stepped onto the ground with a little more force, and the ground shattered, making everyone fly in the air. The boy unsheathed his sword and attacked all the people in the air within a second. It happened in such a short amount of time that everyone was taken off guard. Only one person remained in the arena. There was silence as everyone was still shocked. But after a second the whole arena erupted with cheers. The old man praised the boy's skill and asked him his name. The boy smiled and said his name was Hans. The old man declared, "Hans, I appoint you as the vanguard of the Demon King extermination team." Unaware to all, these happenings were being observed by someone. A voice came from behind the man. "What do you think, sir?" The man replied with a voice as cold as ice, "Seems useful, send him." It was night time. The demon castle entrance. Hans and his party moved towards it. The archer Acne said with a grin, "The defense here is worse than I imagined." Hans replied to her, "Normally, the forest of the Demon King has a strong barrier, making anyone unable to see the entrance." The girl Acne smirked and said, "The new Demon King must be a fool and doesn't know how to do his job properly, or maybe he used all his power to dethrone the former Demon King." Magician Hadim replied, "Anyways, this is better for us. We could have gotten lost here." At this moment the girl shouted with dissatisfaction towards the healer, "Hey you, why are you so slow? Your only work is to provide buff from the back. You should at least know how to walk properly." Hadim tells her to calm down and says, "The healer looks scared. I think we chose the wrong healer." Hans smiles to lighten up the strange atmosphere and says, "Don't be like that. Our team needs him." The healer remained silent hearing all this. All of a sudden, the archer Acne shouted, "Hey warrior, look behind you." Hans quickly turned around, but was still a step late as he couldn't dodge the golem's attack and was sent flying. The other party members got into attack positions, except for the healer. Hadim turned around in anger and shouted towards the healer to give them the buff. Hans slowly got up and commanded them to attack and not wait for the buff. Both of them, hearing the party leader's command, directly attacked the golem. The fireball and magic arrow combined to form a spiral fire tornado which headed towards the golem. Hans coated his sword with energy and directly charged towards the golem. The attack earlier didn't damage the golem, but made his balance falter, making him fall. As the golem was falling, Hans' sword attack hit his weak spot, and he broke down in an instant. Hans turned around with an awkward smile and was about to say something when he saw a fight being broke out. Magician Hedim grabbed the healer's robe and was full of rage. He shouted, "What kind of dumb idiot are you? Why were you just standing there and doing nothing? A healer's job is to always give buff to their teammates during the battle. Didn't you know this? Or are you playing with us? I will handle you after we go back." Hans hurriedly came in between them and told Hadim to calm down, as the healer might have been startled by the situation. At this moment, everyone heard the sound of muffled laughter, which slowly grew into a sinister one. Everyone turned around and looked at the source of the laughter. It was the healer with eyes so red that one could mistake it as lava. The healer laughed and said, "You could barely kill such a weak golem without a buff." But before the healer could complete his sentence, the archer Acne shouted with rage, "Have you gone mad? Just the size of that golem would make it fall under tier 1 golem, and you expect us to instantly finish it? Do healers not have such basic knowledge?" The healer grinned and asked in a mocking tone, "Tier 1 golem, are you sure?" He then opened his palm and continued, "What you just killed now was just a stone." Archer Acne got a bad feeling. She trembled a little but still asked, "What do you mean?" The man continued, "Giving life, increasing size and strengthening the power were the buffs I just gave to this stone. But what would happen if I put a buff on a huge rock like that?" Sweat covered the three of them as they trembled. The man chanted a spell on the huge rock near him. As the trio watched in horror, a colossal titan-shaped golem appeared. In front of this monster, all of them were like ants. The three people could only gulp seeing this absurd phenomenon. The healer finally showed his face. He had an evil grin as he said, "Tell me, warriors, what tier is this golem?" The magician Hedim slowly said, "Spare me my," before he could complete his sentence. A colossal hand smashed into him, turning him into paste. Hans, covered in sweat, could only watch the apocalyptic scene in front of him. The healer calmly said, "Open the door, Beth." A reply came quickly, "Yes, my lord." A portal opened and the man entered inside. The same voice asked him, "What should we do with the warrior?" The man said indifferently, "Leave him. He has nothing to do with our goal." The voice once again spoke as the man sat on the throne, "You must be tired, Demon King." He didn't inherit the demon monarchy from birth. Instead, he was just another innocent human. But this cruel world had turned him into what he is today. The Demon King recalled his past. His memory begins with the day his father came back from the war, being praised by the people. Their team came from the dungeon. All of them looked clean with no wounds at all, except for his father, who was at the back. There was no one who was sad. Ever since he had become 12 years old, he became a healer with his friend Mady. He got more wounds from his teammates than from the monsters, but he endured it, because that was the only work he could do to feed his family. His friend Mady also worked as a healer for her family. They consoled each other and endured each day. But one day, a commotion broke out. The red-haired man shouted at him, "Didn't I tell you to use the buff? If you idiots just gave me the buff properly, did you think I would have gotten hurt?" The healer refuted, saying that he gave all the buffs he could give, and also the barrier. But before he could complete his sentence, a punch landed on his face, making him fall. The man said in anger, "How dare you talk back to me? Just because we are on the same team, do you think you are on the same level as us? If giving buff is all you can do, don't you think you should do it properly? If you don't like to, challenge me for a fight." The healer's eyes were full of rage, but he controlled it. But at this moment the man kicked his face and shouted, "You even dare to stare at me?" The man continued beating and shouting at him. But at this moment someone stopped the man. It was the healer's friend Mady. She stuttered and said, "Stop it. We are sorry. We will do it properly next time." The man, seeing her, had a perverted smile on his face. He caught her hand and said, Then would you apologize instead of him? He started dragging her. The girl begged him to let her go. The healer shouted to stop, but the archer said in a cold voice not to move, and pointed an arrow towards him. The archer said, "Healers can't hurt warriors. If you make one wrong move, he can kill you." Even after hearing the word kill, he was unfazed and thought to save his friend Mady. He ran towards her, but at this moment he stopped, because he saw her pitiful face, which asked him not to come. The girl willingly went inside, so as to save his life. Night passed, and soon day came. But it was not bright anymore. The healer waited outside and soon turned towards his incoming team members. But he couldn't find his friend Mady. He asked where she was. The red-haired man was surprised seeing him and said, "So, you were still here?" The healer once again asked where was Mady. The man then said, "Sorry about that. She was resisting so much, so I hit her once, and she just died." The healer, hearing all that, was stupefied. His only sunshine and the only friend he had was lost. At this moment the green-haired girl whispered something in the man's ear. The man then said, "By the way, you got kicked out of our team. We have to look for another healer." As the man along with his party was leaving, he said, "They couldn't do it properly even if there were two of them, and now that he was alone, he was useless. Good luck to him, haha." The healer sat there and cried. His tears were like raindrops which covered the floor. Soon blood drops covered the floor. It came from him biting his lips. The man trembled and looked at the way they went. His eyes were filled with rage and a thirst for revenge. That day, a human died, and a demon king was reborn. The two sat on the cold floor as they gazed the night sky. The healer said, "The sky is pretty. I would be happy to look at the sky with you for the rest of my life." The girl also smiled and said, "Me too." But suddenly the atmosphere changed. The girl's face disappeared, and what remained was a skeleton. The skeleton said in a pitiful voice, "But why didn't you save me?" In a room, the man quickly woke up. He was covered in sweat. At this moment he realized that it was a dream. His whole body trembled as he remembered the incident where he lost Mady. He did research. He didn't even remember how he ate or slept. All he did was research. If he didn't, he would have that nightmare, so he ended up researching like a lunatic. He went completely insane. Just like that, 5 years had passed, and when the research was all over, the thirst of wanting to take revenge filled his head. His eyes had become lifeless. He opened the door to the world outside his room. At this moment he heard a soft voice, a voice familiar to him. "Where are you going?" The man said in a calm tone, "Just wait. I have found a way to take revenge and revive you." The voice once again said, "You might die if you go." The man paused for a second but then continued to move forward. He didn't have a choice but to go, because he had found a way to revive her. Time passed and day turned into night. The man stepped into the Demon King's land. On top of the castle was an entity staring at the man. That entity was the Demon King. One human and one demon. The confrontation was inevitable. The Demon King with an eerie voice asked, "You are the first person to come here alone. You are very brave." The man hearing this scoffed, "Who said I am alone?" Terrifying magical energy leaked from his surroundings as a huge magical array was formed. The Demon King, seeing this, praised, "Impressive human." From within the array came various eerie-looking skeletons with weapons in their hands. They charged towards the Demon King. The Demon King's eyes glowed as he walked towards the skeletons. The skeleton looked like a child in front of him. He grabbed the skeleton's head and crushed it into powder. The other skeleton which sneaked up to him and attacked with his sword, but the sword broke after hitting the tough skin of the Demon King. This time the Demon King attacked the skeletons. He simply slashed with his finger, and all the skeletons' bodies broke down. But as more and more skeleton revived, the Demon King disappeared from his initial place and reappeared in front of a pitiful skeleton and smashed his head. The Demon King kept on attacking the skeletons, and the skeletons kept on coming. The skeletons' number increased to such a huge amount that when they leaped towards the Demon King, they completely covered him. Seeing this scene, the man said, "There is no end to this, because all the people you have killed will come for you." At this moment, all the skeletons covering the Demon King evaporated by the huge energy blast, which even reached the sky. The man was shocked seeing this, and stepped back by the sudden power surge. The Demon King walked in a majestic way and said, "This is still only the power of a single human. Did you really think such a joke would work on me?" The man was surprised for a moment, but quickly came out of it. He chanted a spell and revived a skeleton. But this time he gave extra buffs to the skeleton and also added the bodies of other skeleton to it, turning the skeleton into a terrifying golem. The Demon King, seeing this, scoffed, "A golem made with the skeleton as its structure, but a pity it is still just a stone." The man coldly replied, "Are you sure about it?" The golem charged at high speed towards the Demon King and punched him on the abdomen. But the punch didn't reach its location, as it was blocked by the Demon King. The golem then used his other fist and charged it with fire energy, and hit the Demon King. The punch connected and the Demon King was sent flying in the air. Turns out the first attack was a feint, and this was the real attack. The smoke disappeared, and what remained was the Demon King. He shouted in an excited voice, "This is so much fun." The golem looked towards the sky and jumped towards the Demon King. The golem once again punched towards him. This time the Demon King was ready as he punched back. Both the punch connected and cancelled out. But the Demon King didn't stop as he then landed a kick on the golem's face and continued to throw punches at him. They were fighting at such high speeds that only the loud sound was heard from time to time. The fight continued, and the Demon King had an upper hand. The golem was being pushed back. And finally the Demon King finished this duel with a punch, which directly sent the golem crashing into the ground. The Demon King then charged an energy ray towards the defeated golem. The energy ray was so powerful that it annihilated the golem completely. Not even a particle of it was left. As the shock of the attack was massive, the man created a shield around himself. But in the next moment, the Demon King appeared in front of him. He lightly pushed his hands inside the shield, and it broke into pieces, leaving the now vulnerable man inside. The Demon King stood in front of him and said, "This isn't enough." The man then smiled and replied, "Really?" All of a sudden several golems appeared behind the man. The man smiled and commanded to his golems, "Go play with him." And thus the fight started. After a while, when the dust settled, the Demon King stood there panting, and around him were broken stones of countless golems. The Demon King was surprised and said, "My body feels so light. There was no one who made me fight this hard in the past 1,000 years. Thanks to you, I realize once again that I am strong." The Demon King looked around but couldn't find the man. At this moment a voice resounded from above. The Demon King turned around. The man was on top of the Demon King's castle. He said, "Seeing that you didn't notice me going to your castle, I don't think the fight was that easy." After hearing that, for the first time did the Demon King show his anger. He shouted with rage, "I was just playing along with you. Now you have crossed the line. How dare you now pay for the crime of stepping foot on my castle with death?" The Demon King charged towards the man with his full power. He didn't feel like playing anymore, and it was time for him to end this puny human. The man answered in a confused tone, "Play along with you?" The Demon King paused in the air as the man raised his hand. This time he didn't chant a spell, but directly created magic. The Demon King felt the gravitational magic, and the weight on him multiplied to several thousand-fold. He couldn't move anymore, let alone attack. At this time did the Demon King realize that he was not the hunter. Instead, he was the prey. The man got down from the castle walls and moved in the Demon King's direction. He said, "Do you want me to tell you why your body feels light today? It is because while you were fighting with my creations, I gave you a buff, so that you could be a match." The man's eyes became cold as he said, "It was me who played along, not you. Since I already had my fun, I will do it properly this time." The man lightly touched the Demon King and said in an emotionless voice, "Goodbye." Now back to the present. At this moment someone came hurriedly while shouting the name, Demon King. The gate to the hall opened, and a little owl entered. It bowed to the Demon King and said, "Demon King, I found it. I finally found the whereabouts of those three." Hearing the words of the owl, the man's eyes burnt with a thirst for vengeance. That's all for this video. Are you excited for part 2? Because this is just the beginning.